My fiancé, 31 male, and I, 30 female, have known each other for over 15 years, but lost touch for several, and out of respect to our significant others. About 5 years ago, we reconnected when he was coming out of a divorce, and I was separated with my ex. I admit, our relationship moved rather quickly, and we moved in with each other while he was making his divorce final. His ex, A, stalked him on Facebook and found out we were dating, which led to her spreading rumors about an affair to his friends, families, co-workers. One of the people she managed to actually believe her was my now brother-in-law's girlfriend, who we shall call B. Well, B did not take kindly to our relationship. She took A's side and tried to get brother-in-law to intervene and break up my fiancé and I. Long story short, she would text brother-in-law and trash my looks, my weight. We found this out as brother-in-law had us try to fix his phone, and she texted while the phone was in our hand. She was also generally rude and snobbish at family gatherings or parties, where she would bring up the fact that A was so much better, and she is missed and won't be replaced, yada yada yada. She would even comment on pictures that they would be better if my fiancé wasn't in them. One time, she even got mad at brother-in-law because I made cookies that were better than hers. She went downstairs and pouted and yelled at him for eating them, liking them, like it was the worst betrayal ever. I had to hear about this through my mother-in-law, who told me how upset she was. Even though I knew she was bad-mouthing me and our relationship, I still tried my best to be nice and even reached out to her by sending a heartfelt letter. I explained that I could put myself in her shoes and maybe understand why she felt the way she had. I explained that I never would come between any relationship, marriage, etc., and that what she believed to know about me was most likely false, and I would like for her to get to know the real me. She replied and said she can't force having a relationship with me, which I got, and had brother-in-law meet with my fiancé and I. Basically, brother-in-law did all her talking and said she would try. Needless to say, it didn't work. She was bashing me outside at a party as my fiancé and I were in the family room watching TV. My fiancé lost his crap and confronted her. At that point, we stopped talking to brother-in-law and her and avoided family gatherings where she would be in attendance. Things were going great as we did not have the drama to deal with. It was even better when we got a phone call in the summer of 2016, learning that brother-in-law was no longer with B. We repaired our relationship, and things were getting better between the three of us. We invited him over with his son, attended events, gatherings, etc. It was getting easier for me to talk to him without feeling judged or like he disliked me. He even said how it was for the best and really focused on bettering himself. Great! This summer, we got a phone call from him, and he was saying that our new nephew wanted to spend time with us and my kids. I have two with my ex. We said it was fine to swing by and to stay for dinner, but he made up some excuse that his stomach was bothering him and left. Our nephew asked us why he was staying the weekend and told us both that he never asked to come. He still had fun anyway. We both thought maybe he was dating someone and wanted a weekend alone. No big deal. The weekend passed and we went to drop our nephew off when we noticed B's car outside. We weren't thrilled. We went inside, but brother-in-law was not there, just his parents. So we said our hellos and we were about to leave when we saw brother-in-law with B driving down the block. I guess they saw our truck and decided to wait around the corner until we were gone. Some time goes by, and Thanksgiving rolls around. My nephew was there, and he was sad because we hadn't attended his birthday. We didn't know he had a party. We weren't invited because B was there. I apologized to him and said we didn't know and that I would make up for it. I asked if he had a good time, and he said it was okay, but he was mad that B was there. He said he hated her because he read that she was trashing his mother and said she's ugly. He figured that because she said that about his mom, that must mean he is ugly. Read it, it broke my heart. I hugged the poor kid and told him it's not true and had to use all my strength to tell him it's not nice to say that you hate someone. I immediately went upstairs and told my fiancé, where he also confirmed. We were hoping that maybe it wouldn't work out since brother-in-law hadn't told us still. Surprise! Fiancé is over at his parents a week before Christmas, where brother-in-law tells him they're dating again and she will be at Christmas. Fiancé wasn't happy because of our history and the fact that this could be Dad's last Christmas. He has ALS and deteriorating rapidly. He wanted Christmas to be special and stress-free, so he expressed his concerns and also validated that we just want brother-in-law to be happy. He asked him to reconsider, or it may be a possibility that we would not attend. I found out, and I convinced my fiancé that we should go regardless because he could regret it if his dad dies. He showed up at Christmas. We made eye contact, socialized, and had a great time with everyone but her. We did not even acknowledge her presence because fiancé said if he did, he won't be able to bite his tongue, especially after hurting our nephew's feelings. The family exchanged gifts and she wasn't really given anything. Nobody really knew about her, and frankly, we didn't feel she deserved anything from us. I guess she felt uncomfortable, awkward, and she left to hide in the basement all day, night. My kids went down to play and of course talked to her. I'm not going to tell them they couldn't. I went down to get them, requested that they thank their uncle and her since her name was on the gifts given to them. They did. I also said a quick thanks and made sure to say it to them both. In my heart, I don't like the thought of being mean and don't want to risk ruining the progress I had made with brother-in-law. She said, "You're welcome, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year." I think this is the most she has ever said to me. I just nodded and left. As we were leaving the house, she came back up. Fiancé made his rounds and skipped her, as did I. The next day, we got an email from brother-in-law requesting a sit-down and hash things out. He explained that they acted immaturely and treated me so, wishing to apologize in person. They also made sure to comment how delicious the Christmas cookies I made were. I'm so lost. I don't know what to do. I don't care to hear excuses or an apology. We've been through this before and it didn't work. I honestly don't think she has changed. I mean, she trashed nephew's mom recently, so I know there is a possibility she is just going to judge me at every gathering too. I used to hate going because my anxiety would get to me. I would obsess over how I looked, how much I weighed, and was overall beyond depressed. I actually had to take anxiety, depression med for 8 months until they broke up. I don't want to be sitting in a room and feeling the way she used to make me feel. I also don't want to invite her to my wedding or the birth of our child for the fear she will snicker past judgment. It was awful. She used to whisper into brother-in-law's ears right in front of us and laugh. At the same time, my fiancé only has his one brother. I'm pretty sure that if we didn't invite this girl, she wouldn't attend either. I don't want my fiancé's relationship to suffer or for him to feel like he's in the middle. I mean, he's pretty pissed at her. Sometimes he seems more mad than me, others less. He sways back and forth. I feel like if she apologizes, it will be fake, a lie. How much could she have really changed? Tell fiancé to tell his brother this. We have no interest in having a relationship with B. You hiding her return aside, her behavior hasn't changed, and we have no interest in another empty apology. Does brother know what B said to his son? That needs to be out in the open before you stop talking to him completely. As parents, you and I both know we'd want to know if somebody hurt our kid like that. He needs to have the opportunity to act on that information. If he doesn't seriously rethink a relationship with that person after hearing what she did to his son, then I don't think losing the relationship with him is any great loss. Yeah, he is aware, but we're not sure what came of it. I know my mother-in-law made excuses and said nephew just took it in the wrong way. Sorry, not sorry. There is no other way to take it when someone calls another person ugly. Truthfully, she got away with a lot because she came from a broken family and has some issues, whatever that means. I have always had a strained relationship with my father. As I begin my post-university adult life, beginning my career financially independent, I've realized that answers to this situation would benefit my mental health immensely. Therapy isn't within my price range, accessible for me right now. I was born into a very financially stable and privileged family. When my mother became pregnant with me, she gave up her career as a senior nurse to become a housewife. My dad's solo income was high enough to afford a decent house, 2 cars, private education for me. My dad had an affair and left to be with his mistress when my mother was 6 months pregnant with my sister, 19 female, and I was 5 years old. He intended to take everything and cut contact. I have seen the court papers. We only remained in the house as the divorce judge highlighted we would be placed in temporary government accommodations otherwise. My mother is an orphan and had no family to support her, take her in. My sister's birth was very difficult, and she had a number of health conditions as a child that required constant medical attention due to seizures. As a result of all of these things, we grew up extremely poor. Food and milk stamps were the norm. We couldn't afford heating, etc. My father stopped paying for private education, and so I went to the local state school, where I was picked on, had my arm broken, etc. And a loner until I left, probably for being very obviously poor and the new kid. My dad, for reasons I don't know, family pressure, genuine love, lower custody payments, agreed to have me every other weekend. From day one, my dad's now wife, 50 female, let's call her Jane, was around. Being a shy and anxious 5-year-old, I was always a little wary of new people. My dad would insist on me calling her mom and her performing personal tasks I was uncomfortable with. Hairbrushing, dressing, bathing me. My dad would always remind me of how much Jane loved me, how she's my new mom, and how lucky I am to have such a wonderful woman to call mother. I was uncomfortable with this from the beginning. I would be in tears if she tried to brush my very coarse curly hair. When I raised any kind of uncomfortableness, attempt to see my dad alone, I was told I was being ungrateful and shot down pretty quickly. This continued over the years. Visits were unreliable. My dad still earned well and would often take impromptu holidays, dinner reservations, and just not pick me up for the weekend. Occasionally, I would see my dad alone. I have fond memories of our time together. He gave me expensive toys my mother couldn't afford and would attribute them as being Jane's idea purchase. Being around 8, 9, this was a pretty decent way of pacifying me, especially as we had so little at home. The microaggressions continued, that my mother couldn't buy me these things because she's lazy and hates me. That if I cut her off and was adopted by Jane, I'd never be sad, hungry, anxious again, and have all the toys I want, etc. To note, Jane never had children of her own. It came to a head at my dad and Jane's wedding, when I was 14. I was spotty, slightly pudgy, and extremely self-conscious 14-year-old. When I had expressed that I didn't want to be a bridesmaid, I had never really built a relationship with Jane, and I was extremely introverted. My dad insisted I was to be one. Expressing that I didn't want to be a bridesmaid seemed to change Jane's behavior, at least to me. When she took me to buy a dress, one of the only times we have ever been alone together, she picked out a dress that only I would be wearing, and not the other bridesmaids. I pleaded with her to let me wear theirs, as the dress she picked for me was extremely unflattering. She told me they wouldn't make their dresses big enough for me to fit into, in front of the dressing assistant. This moment stuck with me for the rest of my life, even when older me realized that I was smaller than 2 of the other bridesmaids. On the day, Jane requested the hairstylist cut 6 inches off my hair, from long hair to a page boy cut, which the stylist did without my consent. The dress and hairstyle pushed me from extremely low self-esteem to genuine hate for myself, and I began self-hate after the wedding. I didn't see my dad for a few years after that. I told him why. He said I was a selfish bee. I had thrown everything Jane had done for me in his and her face, and if I wanted to live with my hillbilly mother instead of my parents who loved me, I can. I started seeing them again because I found it easier to passively accept the status quo than continue to refuse his requests. Time with him varied between an uncomfortable amount of doting and constant criticism of my appearance, school grades, mother, weight, clothing, etc. When I left for university, things were easier as I would only see him every 6 months or so. I have a fantastic relationship with my mother, and we call every day, and did at university. I wouldn't hesitate in calling her my best friend. I studied abroad for a year in Japan, and while I would actively seek to call my mom every day, even with the time difference, I'd call my dad once a month. He'd never call me, ask for more. When he heard through my sister that I still talked to my mom every day, he berated me for my obsession with my mother and complete lack of love for him. I hit the roof that day. I think I was feeling a little homesick maybe. I told him everything. I told him that I was not and was never comfortable with Jane, that her actions had crushed my self-esteem, that I had self-hate for years over it, and that I only see him because I don't have the emotional capacity to refuse his insistence on me visiting without having a mental breakdown. He told me I had always been an ungrateful psycho bee, that my mother had brainwashed me to hate Jane, who was always a better mother, that I'm evil to the core and don't deserve a thing he's ever done for me. He told me if I don't accept her, he'll call the police the minute I'm back in the UK and have me sectioned. After that, like every time I started seeing him again, we pretended nothing had happened. Nothing has changed. Everyone's behavior is still the same. Now I live an independent life. I feel like I'm at a crossroads. I don't know if I was just a very ungrateful child who brought all this on herself, or if my dad and Jane are a-holes. I don't think I can really move on without knowing. If you were me, would you cut him off? Would you try and explain the situation to him again and work on building a better relationship? Would you try and deal with it knowing that you only see him every 6 months or so? This is making me so angry right now. If he was such a great parent, then why did he ever even consider taking everything and cutting off contact? Does he know that you know about these court papers that you mentioned? If he doesn't, I would definitely mention it to him, because there's no way he can keep up this "we are the best parents ever" act if he knows you are aware he very nearly voluntarily stopped being your parent. You definitely were not ungrateful. S-Donor and Jane are most certainly massive douchebag a-holes, and I'm very sorry you've had to go through all of this.